what we're seeing now is Donald Trump reaching the end of his tether with Netanyahu.
Now, the Labour government has not come to the conclusion that Israel can be rightly accused of genocide in Gaza. The Labour Party here at its conference has come to that conclusion with a vote earlier on today. That finding by the Labour conference is in line with the UN Commission report, which also decided that genocide was being committed. Israel called that conclusion distorted and false. And later on, we're going to be crossing live to the White House in Washington, where the Israeli Prime Minister is meeting President Trump and talking about, well, the possibility of a plan for peace in the Middle East. Now, we first then get the thoughts of Elon Levy, the former spokesperson for the Israeli government, who's live on the line. Hello to you, Elon.
Hello, John. How are you?
I'm well, Elon. Thank you for joining us. Now, Elon, do you anticipate that Benjamin Netanyahu is going to say, yes, let's go with this peace plan when he meets Donald Trump and speaks to the media a little bit later on? Or do you think he will not? And if he does not, tell me why you think that is.
Yes, Netanyahu wants to end this war. He wants to end this war on terms that bring back all the hostages and disarms Hamas. That's what this proposal does. It's deeply problematic. But at the end of the day, it lets Israel achieve the goals of this war that Hamas foisted on it. The problem, of course, is Hamas. Whether the deal is accepted depends on whether Hamas is willing to free the hostages and disarm. Those have been Israel's terms for ending the war since Hamas launched it on October 7th. Hamas has shown absolutely no willingness to do that. It's looking at international recognition of a Palestinian state. Seems like the Labour conference right now calling that a fruit, a benefit of October 7th. But, you know, the Qataris are signaling now that they think they can get Hamas to accept the deal. And if they can do that and use the leverage on Hamas that they could have used at any point in the last 2 years, I'm hopeful the longest war in Israel's history can come to an end and we can move forward to a new future of peace in the region.
So that is interesting. So if you're telling me, Elon, are you telling me that if Hamas says they're laying down their arms and they're going to hand over all of the remaining hostages, including the remains of those who sadly died and been killed, that will mean peace? That will mean an end to the war?
Well, immediately after Hamas launched this barbaric war with the October 7th massacre 2 years ago, Israel said that the war could end immediately if the hostages are freed and if Hamas disarms. That is what this proposal does. Now, it's problematic. It's problematic, for example, because it requires Hamas to disarm itself. Go look at the implementation of that. But up front, it would give all the hostages back immediately in the first 48 hours. That would be a tremendous victory for Israel. And the deal says that if Hamas refuses to lay down its arms, then Israel will continue dismantling Hamas and handing over the territory to a transitional, international-led authority that will begin reconstruction without Hamas. So absolutely, I think this is a proposal that, there are still details that need to be ironed out, but it answers Israel's needs since the beginning of the war. Hostages home, Hamas out.
Okay, now, as you say, there are complications. I wonder just how insurmountable they may turn out to be, because the plan, as we understand it, also involves establishing an interim authority for Gaza, with Palestinians involved in that, and that leading ultimately to Palestine, the state of Palestine, as it's recognized by the United Kingdom. I know you disagree with that, but we're heading then towards the two-state solution, which the leader of Israel and key figures in his cabinet say they will not accede to.
Well, I think whatever it might lead to is a long way away because, as you say, there are indeed many obstacles. In order for this to be implemented, Hamas must release all the hostages it has been holding onto as insurance that it will survive the war that it started. In order for this to be implemented, Hamas must disarm from all of its offensive weaponry, and there will be questions about what exactly falls under that category. So there are very serious burdens and obstacles here. But again, the question is whether Hamas can be pressured now into ending the war that it started. Because unfortunately, a lot of the international pressure on Israel to end the war only encouraged Hamas to prolong the war because it was enjoying seeing Israel come under that pressure, getting that negative coverage. It's saying that it's worth it, that that's vindicated the choice of the October 7th massacre. But now it looks like Hamas is coming under pressure. There's a Qatari delegation that has reportedly arrived at the White House just now. Israeli media reported that Prime Minister Netanyahu called the Prime Minister of Qatar from his meeting with Trump to apologize for violating Qatar's sovereignty and that attack on the Hamas terrorists they were harboring on Qatari soil. So if Qatar can be brought forward to pressure Hamas to accept a deal, at least that will end. And then the options for the future, those options are open.
Well, and so you recognise that the Israeli leader apologising for that raid into Qatar aimed at Hamas leaders, which killed a number of Qatari personnel, that could be significant, you think?
It certainly sounds like the sort of concession that Israel wouldn't give away freely. It's the sort of gesture that might be needed to placate the Qataris, to get them on side, to finally pressure Hamas to free the hostages. After 2 years in which the Qatari royal family has been pressuring Hamas, pressuring Israel to give Hamas a ransom that would leave Hamas in power. But I think even by now the Qataris are fed up. They've realized this investment in Hamas has not paid off for them, and I hope they can pressure Hamas to end this war. The pressure should have been on the Qataris a long time ago.
All right, Elon Levy, former spokesperson for the Israeli government, thank you for joining us as always. And now we can talk to Anshel Pfeffer, the biographer of Benjamin Netanyahu, who is also a writer for The Economist. Anshel, welcome back to the programme.
Good evening, John.
Anshel, welcome. Can you just give me your judgment on whether this 21-point plan that Donald Trump seems to have embraced, does it look to you like a goer? Does it look to you like it could really lead to significant progress?
Well, it's actually very similar to the plan that Joe Biden proposed over a year ago. And he proposed that after basically getting some of the details of this plan from the Israelis. So this plan in various forms, but essentially with most of the components that are being mentioned now, has been on the table for over a year. And both the Netanyahu government and Hamas, for various reasons, haven't embraced it until now. And I think what we're seeing now is Donald Trump reaching the end of his tether with Netanyahu and basically bringing him to the White House in a way in which he cannot say no, standing there with Trump, as he will be very soon in the press conference. And at the same time, there's a major pressure on Hamas as well.
Right. I mean, as you say, it's difficult to imagine Benjamin Netanyahu, leader of Israel, which is so dependent on American support, standing next to Donald Trump physically in the White House and just dismissing his plan. We can assume that will not happen. But it's still, though, within Netanyahu's power, well, to maybe make positive noises, but not much positive progress. And he, of course, has members of his cabinet who will want to make very little or no progress on this plan. How do you square that?
Well, I think both sides, and both Netanyahu and the Hamas leadership, are going to be saying yes, and then there'll be a but. And in the but, that's where the details are. I mean, this, even if both sides tonight, we're not quite sure when Hamas is going to deliver an answer, but even if this event this week there will be a yes answer from both sides to the 21-point plan. It's still, I mean, 21 points sounds a lot, but actually there's a whole load of detail missing from the plan. I'll give you just a few things. When will Israel withdraw from the Gaza Strip and what the stages of that withdrawal will be, maps and timetable. The question of whether Hamas really can or will release all the Israeli hostages in 40 hours. At the same time, Israel has to release some very major Palestinian terrorists that has been basically who were serving life sentences for murdering Israelis in exchange. I mean, these are major issues that have to be hashed out. The names of those who are going to be released, how it's going to happen, the protocol for that. Then there's the question of what is this new international force going into Gaza going to be? Who's going to be sending soldiers? I don't think Britain's going to be sending soldiers there. So there's all kinds of names of countries being bandied around, but I haven't yet seen one country saying we're prepared to commit soldiers, our soldiers to be on the ground in Gaza to keep the peace. And those are just three of the items in the plan. There are many more. The details have to be hashed out. So even if both sides say yes this week, it doesn't mean that we have a ceasefire. ceasefire. It means that we're going to go into a period of very detailed negotiations where so many things can still scupper the plan.
Yeah, that is very, very clear. I'm grateful to you for that analysis, Anshel Pfeffer there, the Netanyahu biographer and writer for The Economist. Thank you for joining us as always on the program.